Hey, what's going on, guys? This Saturday is UFC Fight Night Austin, Beneil Dariush versus Arman Tsarukyan, and this is going to be my full card predictions. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card and give you a quick breakdown and prediction. And to be honest, this main card is absolutely stacked. One of the best UFC Fight Night main cards of 2023, maybe even the best of 2023 on paper. Starting off with the first fight of the night, we have Jamey-Lyn Horth versus Veronica. Jamey-Lyn Horth coming down from bantamweight, 6-0, primarily a striker, but really well-rounded in general, but mediocre at best. Same thing for Veronica Hardy, well-rounded, but mediocre. She's 5 years younger. She's 28 years old. Veronica Hardy had her first fight in many years about 8 months ago against Juliana Miller. She got the win there, but Juliana Miller's probably the worst fighter on the roster at that point in time. So I don't know how much to put into Veronica Hardy's performance against her. And then before that, we're looking at fights 4, 5, 6 years ago, and she lost 3 out of her last 5. So she hasn't been super active, but she is still young, so maybe she took that time to improve. When I look at this fight, I really see a fight that could go either way. I think it's going to be an ugly fight. I think it's going to be a close fight. I'm going Veronica Hardy via 29-28 decision. I just think she's younger, she's faster, she's more athletic. I think she's more well-rounded. I think she has decent BJJ, decent grappling, and I think her striking is okay, and she has really good movement. I think Jamey-Lyn Horth is more powerful, has really good heavy kicks, but I think Veronica Hardy will win this fight, maybe, steal 2 rounds. They're going to be close, competitive, ugly rounds, and I think Veronica Hardy gets it done with a mix of her grappling and striking and lands just more shots on the feet to steal 2 out of the 3 rounds. So I'm going Veronica Hardy 29-28. Moving up on the card, we have Wellington Turman versus Gooden. This is an interesting matchup. Turman's coming off 2 losses. In the fights before that has a win over Miesha. Before that has a split decision win over Sam Alvey. As a general rule of thumb, I typically don't pick anyone who had a competitive fight with Sam Alvey, but I don't know in this one. Gooden's not that good. He made his UFC debut in his last fight against Carlston Harris, got out-grappled and outstruck, and Carlston Harris is so sloppy on the feet. Gooden keeps his hands way too low and tries to rely on his power in his fights. So I'm going to go Wellington Turman. I think he's actually a better fighter than people give him credit for. He has decent ground game, decent jiu-jitsu, has decent striking, and he had competitive fights with Randy Brown and Andre Petroski. And I know they're not the elite of the elite, and I know they both beat him, but I still think he looked decent in those fights. He wasn't getting finished in those fights. He wasn't completely outclassed in those fights. And I just don't think Gooden has proved anything yet. I mean, he's not even fighting good competition outside the UFC. It's just one of those things where I look at Gooden, keeps his hands too low. His gas tank is suspicious as well. In his fight against Carlston Harris, he was completely gassed in the 3rd round. Turman has a good gas tank. He can go 3 hard rounds. So I'm going to go Wellington Turman. I'm going to pick him to sub him in the 2nd round. I think Gooden might steal the 1st round, land some good shots, maybe even rock Turman, but Turman survives. I think Turman's going to be looking for takedowns, look to mix it up in the clinch. He's pretty good in the clinch with his elbows in the clinch. And I think in the 2nd round, I think Gooden's going to start to fade a bit, and I think Turman's going to start to push the pace. I think he's going to end up getting a takedown on Gooden. Gooden's going to try to sloppily scramble back to his feet. And I'm going to say Turman locks up a 2nd round guillotine and gets the win. Moving up on the card, we have Ihor Potieria versus Rodolfo Bellato. Rodolfo Bellato, coming off of Dana White's Contender Series. He was on Dana White's Contender Series twice, lost the first time around against Vitor Petrino, which that loss has aged kind of well. And fun fact, he's 11-2. Both of his losses are to Vitor Petrino. And the one on Dana White's Contender Series, he even had Petrino hurt. He almost had a finish in that fight. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but then he ended up losing the fight. Potieria coming off a loss against Carlos Ulberg. Before that has a win over Mauricio Shogun Rua, who's literally a dead body. Before that, lost to Nikolai Negamoriano. Before that, win on Dana White's Contender Series. So hasn't had the best wins. His striking is super sloppy. His entries are super sloppy. And Rodolfo Bellato has nasty, nasty, nasty power. So I'm going to say, Potieria is going to come out and try to grapple. He's going to look for takedowns. Bellato has decent takedown defense. He's decent in the clinch. He's strong, and he has nasty power. So I'm going to pick Bellato via 2nd round KO. I think the 1st round he's going to be a little bit more tentative. I could see him finish him in the 1st round, but I think he's going to be a little bit weary of the takedown attempts because I think Potieria is going to be shooting on takedowns early and often. And I think as Bellato stuffs a couple of those, or maybe he gets taken down once and pops back to his feet, I think the confidence is gonna grow, and I think he's gonna find a shot in the 2nd round and sleep Ihor Potieria. Moving up on the card, we have Steve Garcia versus Melquizael Costa. This is actually a banger fight. Steve Garcia on a 2-fight winning streak. One of those wins was the destruction of Chase Hooper. He's 31 years old. He's just a gritty guy. He's just one of those gritty guys who can absorb damage and will take one to land one. He can be taken down and out-grappled, but Melquizael Costa is not really a guy who's going to be looking to grapple all that much. He likes to strike. Destroyed Austin Lingo in his last fight, but Austin Lingo's not really that good. Before that, took a short notice fight against Thiago Moises, had a decent showing even though he got finished. Looked decent on the feet. I think what this fight comes down to is I think Costa's better on the feet or Costa's better on the feet. I think he has really good kicks. I think he's fast. And I think Garcia just kind of marches forward and relies on his durability a little bit too much. And fair enough, maybe he finds the kill shot, but he leaves himself way too open on the feet. I mean, even in his last fight, he was getting clipped on the feet. The fight before that against Chase Hooper, I don't think Chase Hooper actually landed on him, but the last fight against Norenbeke, he got caught a couple times and eventually found a nasty body shot, then got the finish. And he does have really good body shots, and he will take a punch to land a punch. But I think Melquizael Costa is better on the feet. I think he has good takedown defense. Even early against Thiago Moises on short notice, Costa was stuffing the takedowns. So I think Garcia is going to be getting kind of beat up on the feet. I think he's going to look to initiate some takedowns. I don't think he's going to be able to find those takedowns. And I'm going to pick Costa via second round TKO. I think Steve Garcia is going to walk into a big shot, be testing his chin, looking to land a shot of his own. I think he's going to get clipped badly and then TKO'd with ground and pound. Moving up on the card, we have Joe Solecki versus Drakkar Klose. This is an interesting fight. This is a tough fight to pick. Solecki wants to grapple. Every time out, he wants to look for a takedown, take you down, get a submission. 8 of his 13 wins are via submission. He's one of these guys. Joe Solecki is one of these guys who wants to get on your back and just backpack you the entire fight. He's on a 2-fight winning streak, but it's against Carl Deaton III and Alex De Silva. And in that fight against Alex De Silva, he faced some adversity in that fight, and it was a very close fight. He could have easily lost that fight. And then he lost to Jarrett Gordon not that long ago, about 2 years ago against Jarrett Gordon. So Joe Solecki not having the best wins. You have Drakkar Klose, kind of been inactive, hasn't fought in over a year. His last wins against Rafa Garcia. Rafa Garcia just shot takedowns kind of the whole fight. Drakkar Klose was outstriking him. Before that, a win over Brandon Jenkins. Before that, a loss against Beneil Dariush. That's crazy. 3 fights ago was that fight against Beneil Dariush. That fight against Beneil Dariush feels like a lifetime ago. I really have trouble picking this fight because if you watch tape on Drakkar Klose, he can be taken down and controlled, but he does always try to scramble back to his feet. But honestly, Joe Solecki, if Joe Solecki gets his back, I think he can finish Drakkar Klose, and I don't like the inactivity of Drakkar Klose. This is one of those fights that's very tough to pick. I'm actually going to switch my pick because I was going to pick Drakkar Klose. I'm going to pick Joe Solecki. I'm going to say second round submission. I'm going to switch my pick right now live. I already determined most of my picks before I do these videos, but I'm just thinking about Drakkar Klose is 35 years old. He's been out for almost a year and a half. He can be taken down. When he does get taken down, he tries to scramble back to his feet and kind of leaves openings for people to take his back. Joe Solecki's pretty good on the back. So I'm going to take Joe Solecki. I'm going to say second round rear naked choke. But I don't know, man. I don't know. This was one of those fights that was really tough to pick. A lot of times I watch tape and I'm like, oh, I'm definitely picking this guy. But this fight, I'm like, I could see Drakkar Klose. If I was going to pick Klose, I was going to pick him via decision. Stuffing takedowns, landing the better shots on the feet. He definitely has the better striking. But I think Solecki's going to make it dirty, make it gritty, make it, exist in the clinch and find some takedowns, make Drakkar Klose scramble and kind of gas out a little bit. I think Solecki will find that body triangle, find some control time, and find a rear naked choke in the second round. Moving up on the card, this one actually angers me. We have Cody Brundage versus Zach Reese. Cody Brundage should be on a 4-fight losing streak. He really should be on a 4-fight losing streak. His last fight was a DQ win against Jacob Malkoun, where he literally quit in the beginning of the fight. I'm not going to rehash it here, but Cody Brundage should not be on the roster. Last fight before that, gave up against Cedriquez Dumas. Last fight before that, got submitted versus Rodolfo Vieira. Has no fight IQ. Dude's pulling guillotines left and right. Zach Reese is 6-0, coming off of Dana White's Contender Series. He's powerful. He's long. I mean, it's crazy. He has a 5-inch reach advantage and a 4-inch height advantage. And I think this is an easy fight to pick. I'm going Zach Reese, first round KO. Cody Brundage is literally a bum. I like my chances against Cody Brundage. That's how bad he is, but he'd probably find a way to get a DQ against me. So I think Zach Reese, I don't trust him. I don't think he's all that good, to be honest. I'm watching tape of him. Even in his Dana White's Contender Series fight, I think he got dropped in that fight. He found the armbar, fair enough. He has, a bunch of finishes on his record. He's 6-0. But I don't think he's that good, but I think Brundage is so bad. I mean, I think Brundage could easily lose a street fight, get an altercation out on the street and lose. So I have to go Zach Reese. I think he brutally KOs him in the first round. I think Brundage going to come out sloppy, throwing haymakers, looking to dive into a double leg. Cody Brundage basically waits 20 seconds and then he officially quits in a fight. So you have about 20 seconds for Cody Brundage to win this fight, and then he'll quit. And I think Zach Reese is going to end up dropping him on the feet badly, following him to the ground, and just smashing him with ground and pound. First round TKO for Zach Reese. Moving up on the card, we have Miesha Tate versus Julia Avila. Damn, I want to scream ooh and just move on. I really want to scream ooh and just move on. Miesha Tate is so old. She's 37 years old. She's lost her last 2 fights. And, she came back after, a 4-year layoff, and she fought Mariana Renault, who was like 42 years old at the time. So she has one win in her last 5 fights. She hasn't even been fighting the best competition. Lauren Murphy, Ketlin Vieira. Before 7 years ago, she has a loss to Raquel Pennington. She isn't what she once was. Julia Avila has kind of been inactive as well. Hasn't fought in damn near 2.5 years. Her last fight was against Julia Stolarenko. Won that fight via rear naked choke, which is an okay win. Lost to Sijara Eubanks where she got out-grappled in that fight. Doesn't have the best win. She's 35 years old. But I think Julia Avila, I just think she's not as battle-worn. I don't think she's as old in terms of MMA terms. Miesha Tate has almost 30 fights. And I think she came back for a paycheck. And I think, she's been cashing in. And I think this fight, she's going to lose. I could see Tate maybe out-wrestling her, because Avila, that's kind of her weakness. She can be out-wrestled, but she's not that bad. And she has decent jiu-jitsu, has submission ability. She's super aggressive on the feet. I thought about picking her via TKO, but I'm going to pick Julia Avila via decision. I think she's going to beat up Miesha Tate for 3 rounds, maybe get taken down a little bit, but she'll scramble back to her feet, maybe look for an arm bar and then scramble back to her feet, beat her up some more, land some nasty leg kicks, land some body kicks. And I think Julia Avila takes the fight 30-27 over Miesha Tate. Moving up on the card, we have Clay Guida and the boys versus Joaquim Silva. Clay Guida has been around forever. When I first started watching the sport, Clay Guida was in the UFC. This is crazy. I mean, he's 41 years old. He's still fighting. He's going on 42. He's almost 42. His last fight was a loss against Rafa Garcia. Fight before that got a split decision win over Scott Holtzman, who was retiring. Fight before that got submitted by Claudio Puelles. Fight before that win over Leonardo Santos. I believe he was losing that fight early and then found the win after Santos gassed out, if I'm not mistaken. Lost the fight to Mark Madsen. Clay Guida isn't what he used to be. He's just a wrestler who has good stamina, and he used to be more aggressive back in the day, but years and years ago, his kind of strategy changed. Joaquim Silva, coming off a loss against Arman Tsarukyan, had a decent showing there, and he almost finished Arman. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but he hurt Arman badly in the second round. And, even though he got out-grappled and eventually got finished in the third round, I still think it was a decent showing. He's very explosive on the feet. He's decently well-rounded. Has 10 of 12 wins by finish. I just think, I worry about his durability because he's been finished 3 out of his last 4. He got finished by Arman, finished by Ricky Glenn, which is crazy to get finished by Ricky Glenn, finished by Nasrat Haqparast, but he hasn't been super active either. You go back 2.5 years, he's had 3 fights in 2.5 years. So Joaquim Silva hasn't been super active, but he's 34 years old. And that's young for this fight because Clay Guida's 41, not very aggressive. He used to just move forward and put his pressure and pace on you. I think in this fight, I think Joaquim Silva is going to find a KO. I know Clay Guida is super durable and gritty. Rafa Garcia was beating the piss out of him in this last fight. And he survived, and he had some fight left in him. I think Joaquim Silva has way more power than Rafa Garcia. So I see Clay Guida getting busted up early, clinching up, looking for takedowns. I know Silva was out-grappled in his last fight, but that's against Arman Tsarukyan, a far superior grappler to Clay Guida nowadays. So I think Joaquim Silva will be able to stuff the takedowns. I could even see him finding the guillotine against Clay Guida. But I think in the second round, I think Clay Guida is going to get caught with a big shot. Finished off with ground and pound. I'm going Joaquim Silva, second round TKO. Moving up on the card, the first fight on the main card. And this main card is absolutely stacked. We have Punahele Soriano versus Dustin Stolfus. This is not really a hard fight to predict, in my opinion. Dustin Stolfus lost 4 out of his last 5. His only wins against Dwight Grant. And he got clipped up a couple times in that fight, and he won basically with his grappling. He got starched by Abus Magomedov in the last fight he was in. Had a competitive fight against Gerald Meerschaert, was arguably winning that fight, and then ended up gassing out and getting submitted. Fight before that got submitted by Rodolfo Vieira. Fight before that lost to Kyle Dawkins. You have Punahele Soriano, who's coming off a loss to Roman Khabibulov, not a horrible loss to have. Fight before that had a win over Dolce Lugambula. Fight before that, lost to Nick Maximoff, got out-grappled there. Fight before that, had a decently competitive fight with Brendan Allen. That's kind of aged well. I think Punahele Soriano is a far superior striker. I think Stolfus is going to try to grapple. Soriano has okay takedown defense. It's, he's getting out grappled, by guys who are out. Like Roman Kopylov was able to outstrike him and then shoot in on a perfectly timed double leg and take him down. I don't think Stolfus has that ability. Stolfus is going to be getting outstruck. He's going to be looking for takedowns, desperation shots. Punahele Soriano is going to see it coming from a mile away, stuff the takedowns, and just go right back to work. Soriano likes to brawl. I mean, he took so much damage in that Roman Kopylov fight. And that's one kind of question mark I have. But I'm going Punahele Soriano first round KO. I think Dustin Stolfus is going to grapple like his life depends on it. And I don't think he'll be able to get Soriano down and hold him down. I think Soriano has the ability to get back up, has decent offensive wrestling and defensive wrestling himself. It's not great, but it's decent enough where he can stuff the takedowns of Dustin Stolfus and, potentially find a finish. And Stolfus just doesn't have the striking or power to match up with Soriano. So I'm going Soriano first round KO. Moving up on the card, and this is really where it takes a jump in quality. We have Sean Brady versus Kelvin Gastelum at welterweight. This is a straight up banger. Early prediction, or not prediction, but prediction. I don't think Kelvin Gastelum's going to make weight. I just have my questions. I mean, it's been years. It's been like 5 or 6 years since Kelvin Gastelum has made weight. He's been fighting at middleweight for a while, and I'm worried that he's going to make weight for this fight. So I am worried about that, but hopefully the fight still goes ahead, even if he misses weight by 2 pounds. Sean Brady, his last fight, he got stopped by Belal Muhammad, and he's taken a long time off. He's been out for over a year. Before that, he was undefeated, looking pretty good. He beat Michael Chiesa. Fight before that, beat Jake Matthews. Fight before that, beat Christian Aguilar. Fight before that, he's won all these fights, and he's won a lot of them by submission, but not against the best competition. Even the Michael Chiesa fight, he was gassed in the 3rd round. And, would have lost if that was a 5-round fight. And then he goes out against Belal Muhammad and gets finished. He had a decent showing. I think his striking looked improved in that fight. Just Belal, and I no pun intended, but Belal bullied him in that fight. Because Brady was landing some decent shots, but Belal just started walking him down and throwing pressure. And Sean Brady didn't have the stamina to deal with that pressure, especially, now we're 2 rounds into the fight. The first round, he was okay dealing with it, but then it just started to wear on him. He started to tire out. So I do worry about his gas tank. He's taken a lot of time off. He's coming out and said, I don't lose to Belal, 10 times or 9 times out of 10, I beat Belal. I think it's a little bit of a delusion. And I don't think that's great. If you can't address that you had issues, then I don't know. I didn't listen to the whole thing, so I don't have full context. But honestly, I think Gastelum's on a decline. He's lost 3 out of his last 5, and even the fight against Chris Curtis, I know people call me crazy and call me biased. Without that headbutt in the 2nd round, he loses that fight to Chris Curtis. He would have lost the 2nd and 3rd round. But there was a headbutt. But either way, I think Kelvin Gastelum looked good in that fight, showed good hands, good head movement, good leg kick, started to fade in the 3rd round. Before that, lost to Jared Cannonier, not a horrible loss to have. Before that, lost to Robert Whitaker. Before that, beat Ian Heinisch, where he didn't look particularly good. Before that, got submitted by Jack Hermanson. So Kelvin Gastelum's a guy who's been willing to take on the top-tier middleweights for a while, and now he's moving down to welterweight, which a lot of people thought that'd be his natural division for a while. This is, can Sean Brady grapple Kelvin Gastelum, in my opinion, because Kelvin Gastelum's a far superior striker. I do think Kelvin Gastelum's on the decline. It's crazy that he's only 32. I think of him as much older. I've been watching him since he joined the UFC from The Ultimate Fighter. But when I look at this fight, I just see Sean Brady who, doesn't have the best gas tank, doesn't have very good striking. It's been improving. And then you have Kelvin Gastelum who was doing okay against middleweights, defending takedowns, defending grappling against middleweights. So if he comes down, I think Sean Brady's going to try to grapple him, and I think Kelvin Gastelum will be able to stuff the takedowns and land on the feet. So I'm going to go Kelvin Gastelum 3rd round TKO because I still don't trust Sean Brady's gas tank. I think Kelvin Gastelum's going to be chopping the legs. I think he'll be stuffing the takedowns. I think he'll be landing combinations. I do wonder, if he does miss weight or if he has a tough weight cut, will it be kind of diminishing returns, and will Kelvin Gastelum end up gassing, or will his chin suffer? He gets caught with a big shot from Sean Brady, but Sean Brady is not known for like crazy power. So I think what you're going to see is kind of a close fight at first, but then Kelvin Gastelum's going to slowly start to pull away with combinations, stuffing takedowns. Brady's going to start to wear down, and Gastelum's going to start to turn up on him and start to pressure and volume and land good shots and stuff more takedowns and work in the clinch. And I think Brady's going to be completely gassed by the third round. And I think Kelvin Gastelum drops him in the third round and TKOs him with ground and pound. I have to go with Kelvin Gastelum in this fight. But I do worry about the weight cut. I do worry about the weight cut significantly for Kelvin Gastelum. I could end up being dead wrong on that, but I'm going Kelvin Gastelum. I think he's the far superior striker. I think he beats Sean Brady in the third round via TKO. Moving up on the card to the featured fight on the main card. Another very interesting fight. Rob Font versus Deiveson Figueiredo. Deiveson Figueiredo making his bantamweight debut. I am so happy to see Figgy fight someone other than Brandon Moreno. I love those fights. I could watch those all day. But the last 4 fights, he's fought Brandon Moreno. The last time he fought someone not named Brandon Moreno was Alex Perez way back in, I believe it was 2020. It was 3 years ago. 3 years ago. So it was November 2020, if I'm not mistaken. That's when he fought back-to-back pay-per-views. He's making his UFC debut, his bantamweight debut against Rob Font. I think this is the most optimal matchup for him in the bantamweight division. But I'm curious. I mean, you look at the way Brandon Moreno in his last fight outstruck him on the feet, outboxed him, and then outgrappled him as well. And now Figgy's moving up. I'm wondering, did that weight cut have a massive effect on him? And when I initially thought about this, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely going Figgy because Rob Font's so old. But then I'm looking at it, Figgy's 35 years old. Rob Font's only 36. And Figgy's about to turn 36. And Font's only, he's 36 years old in 5 months. So he's 36 and a half. But either way, the point I'm getting to is I wanted to pick Figgy because of the age of Font, but they're roughly the same age. Rob Font just a little bit older. So this is a matchup where I wonder what the size difference is going to be. It's like we're not going to know till fight night. Figgy's really good everywhere. But a lot of his style was marching forward and having no respect for your opponent's power. And I know Font isn't known for having crazy power, but he has decent power. I mean, look what he did to Adrian Yanez 2 fights ago. In his last fight, he took on Corey Sandhagen on short notice and just got out-grappled. Fight, not that long ago, lost to Marlon Vera, won the majority of that fight against Marlon Vera. Literally like 23 minutes of that fight he won, but Marlon Vera just had the bigger moments. Even Sweet Chin musicked him at one point, which is just crazy. So I understand that Marlon Vera won that fight and won the majority of the rounds, but if you look at the actual time, Font was outstriking him. So I think he's really good. He's really well-rounded, has really crisp boxing, and I don't know if, Figgy's going to be able to make that move to bantamweight and have success here because what is he going to walk down Font and just knock him out? Is he going to grapple Font? Font's not known for the best grappling, so maybe he could take down Font. Font doesn't have the best takedown defense, but he doesn't have the most horrible takedown defense. So I'm going to go Rob Font via decision. I could see him finishing Figgy. I do wonder what Figgy looks like at bantamweight. I feel better once I see him in the cage and kind of size them up next to each other. But for right now, I have to go Rob Font. I don't see Rob Font getting submitted. I don't see Figgy knocking him out. Rob Font has shown he's unbelievably durable, especially in that Marlon Vera fight. He's taken a lot of damage. I think one day his chin's going to go, but maybe not today. So I'm going Rob Font. I'm going to pick him via decision. I think he boxes Deiveson Figueiredo. I think he can even mix in the takedowns offensively and win too. The only way I see Font losing is that maybe he gets clipped with a big shot and looks for a takedown and Figgy locks up a guillotine because Figgy's nasty everywhere. But I just can't look at that last fight against Brandon Moreno. And I know Brandon Moreno is really good. But watching Brandon Moreno outbox him and outgrapple him, he's much smaller than a guy like Rob Font. I would pick Rob Font to beat Brandon Moreno unless he took a long time to put on weight. And I know Deiveson Figueiredo's been out for a bit. He's been out for roughly 10 months. But I just don't trust that he's going to be successful at a higher weight class with his skill set because he likes to bully guys. I don't think he's going to be able to bully Rob Font. Rob Font's got a nasty jab. He's got good kicks. His boxing is so crisp and clean. I think he's going to find the chin of Deiveson Figueiredo early and often. I could see him even finishing Figgy, but I'm not going to pick him to finish Figgy. I'm going Rob Font to win, maybe like a 29-28 decision or a 30-27 decision. I just think the clean boxing will be too much for Figgy. Moving up on the card to the co-main event, we have Jalin Turner versus Bobby Green. This is a short notice fight. It was originally Dan Hooker versus Bobby Green. And I wonder about Jalin Turner making weight. He's a massive lightweight. He's 6'3" with almost a 76-inch reach, which is just absolutely insane. I mean, Jalin Turner's huge. Has a 5-inch height advantage, 4.5-inch reach advantage. He's long, he's powerful, but he's on a 2-fight losing streak. The Dan Hooker fight, he gassed out. And he typically doesn't go past first rounds. Turner has 13 out of 13 finishes. 13 of his wins are finishes, but he hasn't really gone out of the first round a lot. Even the fights that he goes to decision or goes out of the first round, he loses. He had a couple second round finishes. So I don't know. This is a weird fight to pick because Bobby Green, Sometimes he shows up and sometimes he doesn't. He's been around forever. He's 37 years old. He KO'd Grant Dawson in his last fight, slept him. Grant Dawson's still sleeping at the Apex. Fight before that, had a close fight, arguably close fight with Tony Ferguson. Got the arm triangle in the 3rd round. But Tony Ferguson was winning the 1st round, and Tony Ferguson's a literal dead body. Fight before that, head clash against Jared Gordon. Fight before that, got KO'd by Drew Dober. Fight before that, got destroyed by Islam Makhachev, but that doesn't really mean much. I don't trust Jalin Turner if this fight goes long because he doesn't have a gas tank. He showed in his last few fights, or his last fight, and he's taking this fight on short notice. I don't know how the weight cut's going to be, but I think Jalin Turner is truly better everywhere. I think he can clip Bobby Green up on the feet. I think he can out-grapple Bobby Green. And I'm going to go Jalin Turner 1st round sub, but this is one of those matchups where the longer the fight goes, it favors Bobby Green. But I am confident that with Bobby Green's striking style, he leaves his hands very low. I think Turner will mix in the grappling. I think Turner will be able to land on the feet. He's lightning fast on the feet, has nasty head kicks. That head kick that he landed on Dan Hooker was crazy. And I think he's going to hurt Bobby Green on the feet. And I think Bobby Green looks to get up and he finds a guillotine. That's what I'm going to predict. I think Jalin Turner gets it done. 1st round guillotine. I just don't. Bobby Green looked good looked decent his last 2 fights. Looked good against Grant Dawson with the 1st round KO. I don't trust him to be consistent. His entire career, he's been inconsistent. So I think that Jalin Turner, he's going to step in. He's going to catch Bobby Green. He's going to sub him. Also, the last loss was against Mateusz Gamrot before that. Before the Dan Hooker lost, which was a split decision. Both of these last 2 losses were split decisions. And against Gamrot, he took Gamrot on short notice. I forgot who he was originally supposed to fight. But Gamrot came in on short notice. That's a totally different style matchup for Turner, where Turner got out-grappled, but even had a decent showing there. So I think Turner has really good grappling. I mean, the reach, the height advantage, the youth advantage, the fact that Bobby Green's inconsistent. I don't see Bobby Green going out there and KOing Jalin Turner with a jab in the 1st round. I could see Bobby Green maybe getting a late finish if Turner gasses out, but I think he wouldn't accept this fight if he's not going to at least conserve his cardio a little bit and be able to hopefully make it 3 rounds. So I'm going to go Jalin Turner, catch him with a big shot in the 1st round, find a submission. He's known for doing that. He did that against Brad Riddell, finished Jamie Malarkey, did that against Udos Medic as well. I think he clipped him and then found a submission right afterwards, a rear naked choke right afterwards. I'm going Jalin Turner, 1st round finish over Bobby Green. Moving up on the card, we have the main event, Beneil Dariush versus Arman Tsarukyan. This is a banger lightweight fight. I'm really looking forward to this matchup. Beneil Dariush coming off a loss against Charles Oliveira. Before that has a win over Gamrot. Before that a win over Tony Ferguson. Before that a win over Diego Ferreira. Was on a long win streak. Was arguably the number 1 contender. Had to fight Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira went out there, starched him in the 1st round. Arman Tsarukyan, last fight against Joaquim Silva. KO'd him in the 3rd round, had some adversity in that 2nd round. A lot of people started acting like Tsarukyan was overrated because of that. Fight before that, beat Damir Ismagulov. Fight before that, lost to Mateusz Gamrot. So they have an opponent in common. That was a year and a half ago. He fought Gamrot. And for Beneil, he fought him a year ago. So they fought him relatively at the same time or close to the same time period. And one lost in Tsarukyan and one won in Dariush. But I don't think that really puts context on it because Tsarukyan should have won. He should have won. There was one round where the judge scored it for Gamrot, where Gamrot got dropped, and it was a relatively even round. Tsarukyan should have been fighting Beneil Dariush last year when Gamrot fought him. So I'm happy that Tsarukyan's finally getting a top opponent. It's 2 top 10 guys. This has implications for the division. If Tsarukyan wins, he's right up there in title contention. I would love to see that Islam Makhachev rematch. That's a banger fight. And Arman Tsarukyan, he hasn't been finished since 2015. So it's not like how is Beneil Dariush going to go out there and stop him? So that leads me to believe this fight's going to end in a decision most likely. It's not like Arman, has crazy power himself, and Dariush isn't like brutally KOing guys. He's winning a lot of decisions. He did have that KO, that spinning back fist win, a KO over Scott Holtzman, but what does that mean? Had the KO over Drakkar Klose, but what does that really mean? I think what this fight comes down to, I think a lot of people think Arman's a grappler, Dariush is a striker, or a well-rounded guy who likes to strike, and they think Arman won't be able to take him down. Arman's a really good grappler, but he's a really good striker. His hands are getting better, but his kicks are really, really good. And what did Charles Oliveira kind of exploit Dariush with? The head kicks, was just slamming in that head kick from the very first second of the fight to basically the finishing sequence, was landing that head kick. So I think Arman is the better, better overall striker. I think if you look at it, I think Beneil Dariush is more technical. But I think that Arman, he has decent technical ability on the feet. But I also think he's much faster. I talked about it in the Charles Oliveira fight. Beneil Dariush is slow. He looks stuck in the mud. And that's why I was confident that Charles Oliveira would finish him, because Beneil's stuck in the mud. He's slow. It's labored movement. You have Arman, who's 27 years old. Dariush is 34 years old. So I really see Arman Tsarukyan going out there, mixing in the striking with the grappling, forcing Dariush to scramble. Dariush is not going to be taken down and held down for long periods of time. We've seen the way he was scrambling against Gamrot, but Gamrot really didn't have the threat of the striking to mix in with the grappling. He only had the grappling, so that's all Dariush really had to worry about in that fight. And even then, Gamrot was able to get some takedowns and get some control time. Arman's an excellent grappler. So I think Arman, with his much better striking than Gamrot, in my opinion, or decently better striking than Gamrot, then mixing in the takedowns, forcing Dariush to scramble. It's a 5-round fight. And I think Tsarukyan has really good kicks. I think that's where he really shines in the striking department, are his kicks. So I see him smashing the lead leg of Dariush, smashing the body of Dariush, throwing a couple of those head kicks. I almost picked Arman Tsarukyan via like 2nd or 3rd round head kick KO. But I think Dariush is pretty durable. I do wonder, could Charles Oliveira have taken his soul? But I'm going to go Arman Tsarukyan via decision. I think he's going to win it like 4-1. I just think Dariush is too old. I think he's coming off a knockout loss against Charles Oliveira. I think his confidence is probably in the gutter right now. And I think Tsarukyan's just younger, faster, more athletic, and, has better grappling than Dariush. I don't think that Dariush is going to be able to go out there and just easily shake off the takedowns of Tsarukyan and not let it be in his mind while they're striking. I think he'll be able to defend the takedowns. I think he'll be able to scramble out some of the kind of opportunities that Tsarukyan might get him down for a second, and then Dariush scrambles right back. But I think Dariush is going to be worried about that on the feet, and I think Tsarukyan will take advantage of that by landing nasty kicks to the body and head. And I think you're going to see kind of a competitive fight, but it's going to be Arman clearly winning 4 rounds. He's going to outstrike him for the majority of the fight. And I think he's going to mix in the takedowns, and I could even see when the fight goes later on, 4th and 5th round, I could see Tsarukyan really starting to bank some control time. I don't think he's going to take him down and control him for 5 minutes, but I could see like a minute or 2 minutes of control time in the 4th and 5th round, because Dariush is going to start to get tired. If you watch Gamrot versus Tsarukyan, you've seen that Tsarukyan can scramble and grapple for 5 hard rounds. It was one of my favorite fights. I believe it was 2022, was Gamrot versus Tsarukyan. And I think it told us a lot about both these guys when they both fought Gamrot. So I think Arman Tsarukyan gets it done. Could he get clipped on the feet and KO'd? Sure. Beneil Dariush has okay power. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Tsarukyan was exposed against Joaquim Silva. I'm going Arman Tsarukyan to get it done via a relatively comfortable decision against Beneil Dariush. Let me know what you guys think of my predictions down in the comments. Who are you picking in the main event? Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. And thank you so much for watching.